Hello everybody, and welcome back to more Project Destiny. It's been a while since we've done an intro, but one thing that I wanted to point out is I have been doing so much work here. I'm up to about 9 million Kerbal dollar things, right? Now, I wanted to give like a, kind of like a tutorial on how to get that much money. But at the same time, not spend too much time on it because we've got missions that we need to launch and that are ready to launch, in fact. So I just wanted to kind of show you what I've learned over this past week of doing contracts. Now, the thing is that you have to keep in mind that all contracts are not made equal. A lot of the contracts are terrible profit compared to how much time and effort you have to put into them. And then some of them are incredibly difficult, but give you not as much as something that may only take you 10 minutes to do. So you got to kind of sort through the contracts that you have. And, like this is a good example. Science data from space around Duna gives you 157,000, which seems like a lot, right? But when you think about it, you got to be around Duna in order to do that. So you either have to have a satellite set up, you can potentially take a picture of Duna and do it that way, right? So like if you have the telescope that I have, but if you don't have that mod, then you really can't do this mission without doing anything. Or, let's look at this. Like, bring a newly discovered Class A asteroid into orbit around Kerbal. Only 123,000. That's totally not worth it. Then this one, 278 just to test a decoupler landed at Kerbal. You could do it real quick, but you actually probably are going to be spending more resources testing it than you are actually going to be getting them back, right? This one, analyze the surface composition of Moho, 4,000. 4,000 for another one is basically the exact same mission. Perform gravimetric scans of Kerbal. Now, these missions are important because you may get 82,000 on completion, but upon doing each spot, you also get 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. So each time you do one of these spots on Kerbal, you get some money. And these can add up really quickly, especially when you have it set to do, like either the reputation or the science. You convert it into money. And that's what I've done. Like, my money conversion is really, really high with my science, but you get a lot more out of this than what it appears to be, right? Now, these are really easy to do. They don't take very long if you have a craft that is capable of doing it very quickly. Then you have, like take picture of Eve. Now, this is with the mod that I have installed for the telescope. And these are really easy to do, so I do all of these. But I bet, you're getting kind of the right idea of what I'm talking about. Build a new orbital station on a solar orbit. So, orbiting the sun as opposed to orbiting all this stuff. Build the facility into a newly discovered Class C or Class D asteroid. Make sure you look at this stuff, because the fact that it's into a newly discovered Class D asteroid is difficult. Like, having to grab onto the asteroid. I mean, you get 500,000. But basically what you're doing here is you're just going through and you're finding the ones that are terrible. Like this one, you decline it. And then you plant flag on mid-miss. That's actually pretty easy to do. To be honest, I did a few moon and mid-miss missions that were incredibly easy. Just land on it and take surface composition or whatever. And you're just going through and you're going to delete the ones that are terrible, the ones that you don't want to do. Like, build a new surface outpost on the moon. That's pretty good. It gives you 500,000. The advance isn't too bad, but it does give you 500,000. So you should be able to do this fairly easily. Then, things like this you could do fairly easily. So you want to take all those and you just want to delete the ones that are really, really terrible. Like, I'm going to delete that one. And it'll put new ones on there. Perform atmospheric scans on Duna. That's possible with our new rover, so we can keep that. But there's all these little things. So you want to delete the bad ones, keep the good ones, and you just want to do them as quickly as possible. Now, the ones where it's like, gravimetric scans of Kerbal, what I did to do these really quickly is I took one of our old aircraft that we had, like the Trident and all that, and I refitted it and repurposed it for doing these missions, which makes them go really, really quick because you can just fly to the spot real easily. And then things like the moon missions and mid-miss missions to, you know, like land something there, take the stuff, and then send it back. What I would do is I would land it, do the stuff, and instead of wasting my time sending the stuff back, knowing that, you know, with the craft that I made wouldn't really give me too much money back by recovering it, I would just delete it so it's not, you know, taking up stuff on the moon, and then, you know, come back. So that just gives you an idea of what I've been doing for the past week. Just a lot of missions to get to 8 million. So we're halfway there. Now, I did want to just look at our solar system for a second. Oh, and by the way, when you get those missions, it totally shows you where to go on the map. And then it gives you an idea when you get there. It's like, you're now entering, you know, Kerbin's surprise location, and then you're able to take the stuff. So we have a lot of stuff going on here. We've got the Leonard Nimoy, you know, floating around. We have the probe that we put up with the Spartacus, and then we have the Atlas telescope, and then we have an outer telescope out over here. So we're starting to develop a lot of clutter around Kerbin, and we're gonna get more. We're gonna be having a international space station, basically, floating around Kerbin, but at the bare minimum, like skidding across the atmosphere, you know, like 70,000, 75,000 meters above the surface. So we're going to be doing that kind of stuff, and that's going to be adding another level of detail here, and there's just going to be a lot of satellites popping up all of a sudden. So I wanted to point out that when you're doing these, try to keep them like enough apart. Like, you see where my cursor is, how like you're touching the line, and then all of a sudden I'm not touching the line. That's more than enough space, like if you had it right where the point of that cursor was, to not collide with each other, because that is, you know, thousands of kilometers away. Also, I wanted to clean up the debris here that we didn't get to do last time. So we have the gosh, I know I renamed it, but I don't see. Okay, hold on. Stations, right? So it's not actually showing me this. Is it showing me the station? There it is. Okay, so that's the Leonard Nimoy. So we don't want to destroy that, but we do want to terminate the rest of this stuff. And that's because it is all pretty close to the station, and I don't want any accidents happening, you know what I mean? Where it just like happens to get in the same orbital velocity and then running into it, so that would be terrible. So we're just going to get rid of all this debris that we left up there, and then that's good to go. And then we're going to launch our new craft, which I've designed specifically in mind of a current mission going on right now, in the... Oop, that could have been bad. That's a probe. That's debris. I don't know what the probe is, honestly. So let's fly that, figure that out. Yeah, there's currently a mission going on with NASA that is really interesting to me, so I created something to kind of mimic it. Okay, it's just that, and then Leonard Nimoy is over there, right? So we can switch to it. You see, it's fine. I haven't deleted anything on it. Great. How are our crew doing? We have Mooney and Hudkis Carmen. We've seen Mooney before. Herdred. Look, I honestly, I didn't learn their names. You could pretty much see everybody. So they're all doing their thing. In fact, should we move anybody around? No, I think everybody's fine. We don't actually really need to do any science at the moment. I mean, we just launched this thing. They're still getting settled. All right, now let's go back to the map so I can get rid of this. I mean, you see how close this thing is? You could seriously have a gravity moment where, you know, maybe all of a sudden something freaks out. You get the space kraken bug going on, and then this just launches itself towards the space station. Yeah, terminate that. And then the space station blows apart and creates a ton of debris. And then all of that debris is in, you know, like really huge amounts of velocity that's picking up. And then that hits the probe, and the probe explodes outward. And then the outward explosion blows up everything. It would be bad. You don't want that to happen. Okay, we want to find the Horizon probe, which we have created. And we're going to launch this, suckers. This is our new mission. It's a pretty small rocket, and I will explain it as we go. I've already set up my action groups, and to be honest, it has no crew because it is a probe. So let's launch this sucker. It's also honestly very cheap. It doesn't really have a lot going on with it. So the probe is the most expensive part, I think, because it has so much like little tiny detail things on it. The probe itself is also not a small probe. It's fairly big, but it's going to go on its own juice. We're just getting this thing into orbit, and then the probe is going to go. And we're going to finally use the Kerbal alarm clock to make sure that we're just going to like set it on its way, and then have Kerbal alarm clock let us know when it's kind of getting close, and then we're going to do it. So we're not going to take, you know, like what we did before, where we took like that year and a half to send the probe or the rover out. We're just going to get this thing going as much as possible, and then just let it go on its way, and then work on some other things, because, you know, there's other things that need to be done to launch the Aurora. And I've also decided that the Aurora isn't going to be called the Aurora. It's an Aurora class ship. So because of that, wow, I really need to be watching my orbit here. Let's pull that down. Okay, let's bring this up. We do want a fairly high orbit, so what I'm doing is exactly what I want to be doing, which is getting really high up. Probably, that should be enough. That should be more than enough. Okay, so now we're going to go up. And then, there we go. Okay, cool. So that will be doing its thing. And that will get into orbit very quickly. Like I said, oh, there is one thing we need to do first. I almost forgot. We don't want this crap, you know, invading our system and invading our Kerbal system. So we're going to get rid of those and allow the probe to breathe. Now, what's going to happen is that will allow that stuff to fall back to Kerbal, because we have a suborbital trajectory at the moment. So that way we don't have to worry about cleaning it up. All right, now we can accelerate away from those. Goodbye, fairings. And then we're almost ready to... Is that stage only? It is, okay. We're almost ready to get the other pieces set up. So I'm gonna burn out the rest of my fuel for this, get as high as I can. Wow, that was a lot higher than I thought it would be. We could almost go past the moon if we wanted to. We could kill multiple birds with one stone here. You know, you could do like a mission where, you know, where you're basically doing the thing with getting a contract, going to the moon, finishing that contract with the probe, taking the probe, going to somewhere else. We're kind of going to be doing that already. That was the purpose of this mission, but you'll see what I mean here. Okay, so let's get rid of this. We don't need this sucker anymore. Actually, let's get to our destination first, which is our apoapsis, or just before it at least. Right about there. Perfect. Okay, so I want to flip this. Do I want to flip this thing around? No, I want to get rid of it first because it is very weighty. So that is going to launch from there. Cool. And let's activate the engine. I want to flip this thing around to go prograde. Whoops, a little too much. Okay, how about, right, gosh, I need to get away from this thing. So let's go like this way, yes. Perfect, okay. Now I can face prograde and increase my orbit. And then that will be doing this thing, okay. Now, because we're so far out, this will go up fairly quickly. And the whole idea of this little tiny stage is just to get this where I need it. on its orbit. So kind of like a circularized orbit if I can, or as close to one as I can. And I do want it up this high purposefully because I want to be able to time warp if I need to. But basically, the idea here is to get it to Joule, because this thing is going all the way to Joule. So I can, we can zoom out while we're doing that. So let's actually set our target for Joule. There we go, set its target. In fact, you know what? Because this thing is so efficient, maybe we should do Eve first. We could do Eve, or we could do Dress. We could hit up Eve and then go to Dress, or we could just go to Dress and then jump to Joule. I think that's a better idea. Because this thing, like I said, is based on a mission that is already going on in our world. It's the Dawn spacecraft. Now, this sucker was orbiting a asteroid for the longest time, and only recently did it change trajectory. So do we want to get rid of that right now? Sure. Let's get that away from us. So the Dawn spacecraft was orbiting an asteroid, and now it is moving to Ceres, which is this dwarf planet. And this dwarf planet Ceres has been a bit of a mystery, but the Dawn spacecraft continuously gets closer and continuously takes awesome pictures of it. But that spacecraft has been going on for quite some time. It's been out in space for, several years now. And the idea behind it is that it's powered by ion propulsion, which is what these are. So I can actually turn these on, and you can see my trajectory going up. I'm fully throttled. However, we're just going to turn this off. Now, there's not a lot of throttle here, right? It's a little bit of the point. But we want to open these up because it is mostly powered by electricity. And that's why I have so many of these here. So that way, when I'm not in range of the sun, it's still getting me electrical charge. This is all the xenon gas that it requires. And then, we have more xenon gas there. In fact, we could probably turn the lights on if we wanted to. We don't really have too many lights because we don't really need to see too much. We do have some scientific data stuff here. So we have the gravioli detector. We've got, the barometer, so we get around Joule. We have the accelerometer. We've got a lot of stuff here. And then, of course, we have the telescope. Because this thing will be going around orbits of planets and stuff. And we have MechJeb, just in case I ever need to set up a weird maneuver to get close to it and maybe pick it up or decommission it or something. For the most part, this should be able to go around the Kerbal system without too many issues. So we should be able to get, like I said, to Dress and then back fairly easily. But I need to set up that maneuver node, so that is exactly what I'm going to do.